But the protagonist isn't here to chat. He conjures a fireball instantly and launches it right at his face. The man is forced to retreat, barely dodging, and wonders who this brat even is. At that moment, the door slams shut. The protagonist pulls up his hood and says the boss gave the order to get rid of him. The man laughs like a lunatic, saying the assassin has returned. He realizes the boy found out the circle was going to activate at 3 in the afternoon, but for him, that's even better. Instead of tossing a bunch of useless kids into the ritual, he'll use Ray as the sacrifice. And with that, he lunges straight at the protagonist. Ray locks eyes with him, but the scene shifts to Philip, watching from a distance and saying he can't see anything. Kendrick insists there's no way Hunter would lose, but Philip quickly covers his mouth and tells him not to say things like that, because they're hiding all of this from Veronica. Turns out she's there too. Since she's a mage, it seems she could help somehow. He introduces himself to her, asks if she's worried about Ray, and she says no. He wants to know how she can't be, and she answers that Ray is the most talented person she's ever seen in her life. Meanwhile, the fight is brutal. Fireballs flying right at Ray, but he ducks low and slips to the side. The man's getting furious with this little rat and charges in for a physical strike, aiming straight for his face. Back and forth, strike after strike. Veronica insists she's certain he'll win. Philip notices that even as she says this, her hands are trembling. Maybe that was proof she really believed in him, even while so worried. In the fight, Ray's dagger snaps. The man mocks him, telling the assassin to give up. He comes in for another attack, but I swear, Ray uses magic to pull the metal of the dagger back together, reforging it right in his hand. That's next level stuff. With it, he even manages to deflect the man's attack and knock his weapon away. Walter realizes the kid used the element of maintenance, but that should have been impossible while handling so many elements at once. Then the protagonist strikes again, aiming straight for his neck, but the man pulls back just in time. The slee bastard had reinforced himself with a layer of steel too, sneering that the brat was nothing more than a rat. Ray realizes his dagger won't work that easily against a two-circle opponent. Walter then asks if he's just trying to buy time until the magic circle activates. He says Ray doesn't need to worry, he won't let that happen. Suddenly, he starts shouting, conjuring fiery serpents slithering everywhere. One lunges to bite Ray, who dodges while Walter yells that it doesn't matter. Ray is going to die here in this warehouse. But the protagonist is slipping left and right, stepping lightly on the railing, darting aside, thinking he needs to find a way out of this. Walter's movements are locked up by the need to control his spell from long range. So Ray decides maybe the answer is to go on the offensive. He channels mana beneath his feet and launches himself forward. Walter laughs, saying it's ridiculous if Ray thinks he'll miss and end up struck by his own serpent. But Ray has other plans. He already knew it'd be hard to be a mage with more circles, which is why he talked to Veronica beforehand. He slams the ground, sketching a magic circle that erases the serpent and ruins Walter's spell. The clever kid had learned how to draw circles from Veronica, and now Walter is left drenched, scorched, and shaken. He can't understand. A circle from a level 1 mage shouldn't work like that. Ray just tells him to get ready and with full swagger, sends a water pillar crashing down on him. What's this? The kid is building an aura now. The whole place is swept clean, leaving only Walter, soaked and pathetic, in the center. 3 minutes remain before the circle is set to activate. Suddenly, Walter gets back up, saying he has to leave, that he needs to return to the boss. But Ray warns him to stay put, or that ring will be destroyed. Walter scoffs, saying it's irrelevant. Executives gain things far beyond what normal members do. Ray needs to stall for more time, he's already at his limit. Walter insists it's impossible, but Ray counters that if a certain combination of elements is placed into the ring, it can be weakened or even destroyed. That stresses Walter, who snaps that before leaving, they'll tear Ray's arms off. Ray shrugs and says fine, he can try. Then, out of nowhere, he tosses the ring away. Walter bolts one way, Ray dashes the other. By the time Walter retrieves it, Ray's already at the door with 2 more stones in hand. Goodbye. He shuts the place behind him. Walter thinks he just has to escape, since there are still 5 minutes left. But then suddenly, the circle activates. Something feels off. He should have had more time before it triggered. And that's when we see Ray had pulled a 300 IQ move. Veronica had explained that the time limit for accelerating a circle's activation by altering certain parts was 5 minutes. Of course, Ray had tinkered with it earlier, and now Walter is the one being consumed. Humiliated, left with nothing but clothes and that reinforced ring, and the cursed mana flaring above it, Ray walks out still carrying that swagger, taking the ring, giving it a cold stare. Outside, Kendrick is already panicking, saying they need to recover Ray's body. Philip slaps him, telling Veronica everything's fine. But suddenly she rises, saying she feels a strange mana. Someone was entering a berserker state. The two of them don't understand what she's talking about. They don't know magic. They just see her running off and decide to follow. Then, all at once, she stops. They're confused. Ray's walking toward them, breathing out flames. But it isn't a good sign. Veronica recognizes it instantly as mana poisoning. She says Ray's in danger, and the two others instinctively brace themselves. Philip says if the leader's in danger, then they'll have to help the boy, and he charges forward. The kid was already getting beaten before, but now just a flick of Ray's hand sent him flying. And damn, Ray really looked ready to fry this poor kid. It would have been perfect. I mean, it would have been cruel. Philip didn't want him to die, but hey, if he went down with him, that's life. The protagonist was already forming a fireball to throw at him, but Veronica, standing nearby, managed to cast a barrier and broke it apart. She's the tough one here. She tells them the only way to end Ray's mana poisoning is either to extinguish his flames or knock him unconscious. Philip says he understands, grabs Kendrick, who had already fainted like the useless guy he is, and asks her to hold Ray off for 5 minutes. The protagonist keeps hurling fireballs, but then decides to form a massive spirit bomb-sized fireball. He throws it right at her and everyone else, and now they're all realizing they won't be able to withstand this one. Veronica sees it too. She knows she won't be able to block it, but through tears, she says all she wants is for him to feel safe. Next chapter, we cut back to right after the fight with Walter. Ray had been staring at the mana inside the ring. Strangely, it seemed to be growing in an extraordinary way. He was wondering how so much mana could be contained in that ring when suddenly something caught his attention. In the middle of the flames, he saw a boy screaming, begging not to be hit. At that moment, he realized he was seeing Walter's memories. The boy was on the ground, beaten to a pulp. Then he stood up, consumed with rage, saying he had to take revenge on everyone. From then on, vengeance ruled him and his mana was always fueled by anger. Ray seemed to be getting dragged into those same emotions, remembering everything that had happened, while a voice screamed in his ear to kill them all. A demon at his back whispered that he needed to slaughter everyone in front of him. That's when he hurled that massive firebomb at Veronica, who stood there with her hands clasped, praying and crying. But in that moment, he saw a strange white sun. He reached for it, and suddenly it was like he woke up from a trance, crying. Veronica was right there in front of him. Then the scene jumps forward 3 days. We're in the infirmary, and she's asking our boy for some water. He brings it to her. After taking the brunt of his attacks, she'd been bedridden for 2 days from mana intoxication. Because of that, she now makes him fetch books, take care of the library, and run all sorts of errands. So he's busy going back and forth for her. Sometime later, she asks if he was also affected by mana poisoning, and he says yes. For now, he's not going to reveal that it was because of the ring and the guy's sacrifice. She warns him to stop using unpurified mana, and that's when he finally reveals it. He said he wouldn't, but he pulls the ring out of his pocket. This brat's trying to troll us. He explains that the mana came from another person, and she says her grandfather had already warned her. Mana extracted from humans is extremely toxic and dangerous. He tells her not to worry, he won't use it. After all, if it weren't for Veronica, he would have burned not only everyone else but himself as well. She says thank goodness, and Ray takes the chance to thank her for saving him. But since Ray never thanks anyone, she assumes he's still under the influence of the mana. Then Philip appears, saying he needs to talk to the boy. In a box in the middle of the room are all of Walter's belongings that he had ordered collected. In an old photo from an orphanage, you can see the man with the hat, probably Walter, along with a bunch of kids and another guy in the back. The problem was the photo was old and everyone had their hair covering their faces, looking like a bunch of emo otakus. There was also a notebook of his. Inside were records of missions across different sectors. Sector 38, Sector 47, all marked as complete. He figured those were orders from Mark Red. And in Sector 31, the note said he had to investigate some kind of green gem. It looks like he didn't get any results. In Sector 48, he was supposed to investigate a blue gem, also nothing. Then a yellow gem, an orange one, and again, no results. He's certain now that these colored gems are fragments of the rainbow. And by the looks of it, not even Mark Red knows where the rest of them are. Philip, watching the protagonist, notices that he stumbled onto something important. So he says that since Ray is preparing to leave the sector, they've set aside some money to give him a little help. If he ever needs support, he can always come back. And when the date to leave is set, just let him know and he'll help him get out safely. Thinking about it, this boy went from 50 down to 49. At this pace, good grief, it's going to be 2,000 chapters. This is the new Marshall Peak. Philip is sad because he knows that once Ray leaves, he'll never see the boy again. Oh no, guys. To the sadness of many and the joy of a few weirdos, our boy invites Philip to leave the sector with him. I thought he was going to take Veronica, considering her grandfather, who's taking care of her, isn't going to live much longer. But Philip is shocked, asking if he's serious, and Ray says yes. His friend thinks it's crazy. He's never stepped outside 49, and he can't just abandon everything he built there. But Ray tells him he already knows the reason Philip's been saving up so much money. It's because he wants to leave this place. Apparently, they had spoken about it before. From what it looks like, Philip has a plan somewhere else. I don't know, since there are only images without dialogue. But it seems to be true, because in the end he says fine, he'll go with Ray. The only thing he asks for is a little time to prepare someone else to take over the hotel. All he needs are 2 weeks. Finally, the author learned what a time skip is. So if everyone waves goodbye, Philip trains the others, our boy rides in the carriage, learns magic with the old man, chats with Veronica, who's impressed at how fast he's learning. He tells her she's a great teacher, while she thinks, no way, I barely know how to teach anything. And even now, the kids at the library still run away in fear whenever they see Ray, terrified of him. They're scared while he's around, but Veronica explains that once he leaves, they all get excited, wanting to know more about the Great Hunter. Then it's time to switch roles. Veronica starts practicing her circle while Ray observes.